Hello, I'm Lisa Bien, and welcome to Bouncing Back. For an increasing number of Americans, growing up means going into debt. And while it's been repeatedly proven that the value of a college education will pay for itself over your lifetime, the stress and frustration and sense of helplessness caused by student debt can follow you long after you graduate. Bouncing back from student debt may take time, but it doesn't mean that it has to control your life. Today we're going to talk with a recent graduate and Temple University's Bursar about how to face the challenges of living with and then getting debt-free. Let's get started. Welcome back. Jacqueline Daller is a recent graduate of the School of Media and Communications Department at Temple University. Her degree is in strategic communications with a focus on public relations. While attending class full-time, she also worked full-time at a hospital where she worked as the pharmacy technician. Despite working full-time, she also accumulated more than $50,000 in student loans. She is determined to bounce back from her student loans by creating a long-term plan with the help of a financial expert. David Glezerman is the Assistant Vice President and Bursar here at Temple University, where he has worked since the 1980s. His overall responsibility is for collecting, billing, collections, and management student finances. A nationally renowned speaker who has presented at many industry conferences and workshops. David is the co-author of Managing and Collecting Student Accounts and Loans, a desk reference for educational receivables stewardship. Hopefully, he can explain what this all means. Thank you for joining us today, David, so we can all bounce back from student loans. Thank you for taking the time to be on the show. So, Jackie, here you are. You have worked full-time while going to school, and now you have $50,000 worth in student loans. What's your plan?
I guess since graduating, I've really been trying to understand all of my loans and who's holding them and which ones I should pay back first. So it's been kind of difficult trying to figure out exactly how I should go about doing it. So I don't really have a set plan as of now, but that's what I'd like to hopefully accomplish within the next month or so that way I can start paying them back on time and make sure that everything is taken care of.
So, we all graduate from college with some levels of debt. Has the debt put a burden on you? Are you thinking about it all the time? Has it changed your spending habits? How is the debt impacting you right now?
I wouldn't say that I think about it all the time because I work full time, so I'm able to pay all my bills as of now. But I think that in the back of my mind, I always know that it's going to come around really quickly as to when I have to pay them. So as far as my spending habits, I think I've been more conscious about trying to save money so that way in the long run I'll be able to pay them down quicker. So I think about it occasionally, but I wouldn't say that all the time. But it's not really a huge concern at the moment. But I think that once I start getting all my bills coming in, it's definitely gonna be more prevalent. So
I also know that your degree is different than what your field that you're in right now, right? So do you have a concern that, I'm going to have all this debt and I want to get into a different field and that field might pay you different? Is that going to impact your career choices moving forward, or do we want to just sit down with David and he can tell you what to do?
Yeah, I think it's definitely in the back of my mind that, I get paid pretty well with what I do because I've been at the hospital for over 5 years. So to go from something in healthcare to something in public relations, obviously it's not going to pay probably as much, but I think about that occasionally. I would say that it does hinder whether or not I switch over careers. I definitely want to get into public relations, but I think that that'll have a factor in it.
So David, what tips can we give to Jackie so that she can get into the field of her dreams that she's been dying to?
Put that plan in place next month. Best thing you can do. So many young people today just find out when they graduate and realize I borrowed all this money, and it's shocking. And just trying to figure out what to do. Student loans are complex enough as it is, and just knowing what your rights and responsibilities are right up front. I mean, when I say rights and responsibilities, not just that you have a loan and you have to pay it back, but know what your benefits are. If you're not working after graduation, there are ways that you can defer payment. But the most important thing is don't be afraid to talk to your lender or whoever company's servicing your student loans and get assistance from them. They're really there to help borrowers, not just to get your money back. And I think that's so important. A lot of times there's just a fear about talking to somebody over your personal business. But knowing, if you, from the get-go, even while you're still a student, just borrow what you need.
But that's often hard, though, because I feel like sometimes borrow just what you need. You know, I have a son who's in college, and to predict exactly what you need, because I think what we had talked about this, you know, you get a loan for X amount of money. It may cover your tuition, but then you also have books. You have all these other expenses that are incurred while you're in college. So how, you know, it's great advice, borrow what you need. And my son's always like, well, do we need that? And I'm like, well, I need it, so you need it, right?
Well, and a lot of times, Lisa, it's good, a family conversation. I mean, how much is the family contributing, working with the financial aid office at your school on what types of financial aid you're going to receive, not just loans. You know, you're eligible for grants, you get scholarships.
How do you find out all that information? Because I agree, there's a lot out there, and I also have been told that while you're in college, if you get a scholarship early on and you continue to hold and maintain a certain level GPA, that you can then apply for more. Is that a fact?
Well, it depends. Scholarships can vary in, you know, what the plan is, but I think it's important to talk with your financial aid office and understand from the first time you get an award letter from that office and says this is what your package is going to look like. Take a look at, you know, how much you're getting in areas besides loans. How much can the family contribute toward education? It's really important, again, as a family discussion, even before a student sets foot on campus, to think about financing an education, not just year to year, the way financial aid works, but have a full plan. Plan for the 4 years.
Okay, so now we're here, bringing it back where Jackie has, I mean, not just planned for the 4 years, but Jackie worked, you know, diligently throughout her college career, full time. Now she has all this student debt. And, you know, I think that a lot of people, for some reason, I mean, listen, there's a lot of books written about debt, how to get over your debt. And in doing the research for this show, I saw and learned that student loans is considered bad debt. Can you explain the difference to us between good debt and bad debt, and then why are student loans considered bad debt?
Well, I think student loans, I don't know that I necessarily agree with it as being bad debt. Sometimes a student loan, if you need to borrow, if it's that amount of money that's going to help you complete your education, that can be good debt. But borrowing just for the sake of borrowing builds up a lot of excess debt, I think. And that's where I think the term bad debt comes into play. You're going to have to think about, after graduation, buying a car, where you're going to live, whether you're renting, if you're eventually going to buy a house. Even, you know, little things as credit cards from department stores or your MasterCard, Visa, whatever those types of cards are, just things that you need for your day-to-day expenses. Planning how all that works in the long run is really key. And I think student loan debt can be very overwhelming. And where it becomes bad debt is if you don't do some budgeting, don't do some planning. Build that in just like you would for your, when you're renting, your utilities, your other expenses. Student loans should be another line item in that budget.
Okay, so you also talk, you know, we're talking about debt in general and student loan debt. You brought something up about credit cards, and something that concerns me is on college campuses, especially in the spring, you're walking around and they always want the college kid to get that credit card. You know, do you recommend that when students are working, they get credit cards? What's your advice on getting a credit card?
Well, now, several years ago, Congress passed a law that made it much more difficult for companies to solicit college students before the age of 21. So the days when I would see people out in front of the Student Center, you know, I'll give you a T-shirt if you feel like
my days.
And mine too. Those days are gone because it really was, it was more than a perception. It was a reality that young people were being taken advantage of just to get a credit card and not being given the tools on how to use that card. definitely by the time a student is graduating, should be trying to apply for at least one card. And again, this is where parents are helpful, because sometimes you might get that card with your parent, as parent might be co-signing. Students or young person should be responsible, and really that's where the parent helps out and guides a little bit.
We'll be right back, and we will continue this conversation. Welcome back. So continuing with our conversation where we started, with parents being involved in the role that parents play in helping students. It's a family conversation is what we ended up. So what advice would you give to parents that want to sit down and, you know what, maybe there's parents out there that aren't really good at planning, how to get out of debt themselves?
Well, I think, Lisa, it's really important, again, having the family discussion. It's more than parents just paying their kids' student loans. It's helping them understand how to budget, how, gain the importance. What's a priority? A student loan can affect the young person's credit as much as a credit card, a mortgage, any other type of debt. But, framing all of that so that there's an understanding. If they need help, talk to the lender, again, as I was mentioning before, but also just for support. A lot of times, it's such a difficult experience. I think Jackie found there are cases where it can be overwhelming. Just knowing some of the small terms of the loans can be important. And having that sounding board really is good to have parents there.
Okay, so now you have mom and dad, or just mom or just dad, and the student are sitting there and they've graduated. They should create a budget, right? What's the first step? I say get an Excel spreadsheet. Maybe not. Maybe there's an app on their phones that they can create a budget.
There are many tools out there, but get something you're comfortable working with. I mean, even if it's 2 pieces of paper, one sheet has your income, the other one has your expenses, and list everything. Don't even put in there what I would consider discretionary spending. You want to go out on Saturday night, you need money.
Right, and you need to know how much you want to spend, and you have to be able to say, well, I'm not going to go out and spend $100 if you don't have the $100.
I mean, the worst thing you can do is just spend, and then you get to the end of the month and you have nothing left. So you really want to just look at what kind of money you have coming in, remembering that taxes are going to come out of that. Sometimes the difference between gross and net pay is confusing to a young person. So knowing how much money is going into the bank account, and then every expense you've got, your rent, your car payments, your insurance, your gas, even though that's lower right now.
Right, let's hope it stays that way for a little while.
And then your student loan payments, your credit card payments, all your utilities, all the types of things that you're going to have to pay in one way, shape, or form. Remembering to do 2 things if you can. I think 1, leave some money for yourself, but 2, also put some money in first payment you make it to savings if you're able to do that. So you can set some money aside so that when you're ready to buy a car, you've got money for a down payment. If there's something you really want, you'll have some money set aside for that. Not always easy in today's world, but
I was just going to say, sometimes when we look at our budgets, we go, oh, well, we'll save next month. I know I'm a perfect, I do that a lot. Oh, I'll worry about that next month. And so it seems that sometimes it comes down to what we learn in elementary school, the difference between a need and a want. And I think that we all have to revisit that on a regular basis. Would you recommend revisiting the budget every month, almost saying like, how'd I do this month budget-wise?
I think you look at it every month until you start to get comfortable, and then, because things will change. You never know when you're going to have something break and you're going to have an emergency. That's why I say that little bit you save almost becomes your emergency fund, if nothing else, so that you're not running from crisis to crisis. You've got a plan in that sense.
How's that sound, Jackie? Doable?
Yeah, it sounds doable.
Have you done that yet, or?
Yeah, I have a budget that I balance every month, so I know what I'm making and then versus what I'm spending. So I'm able to actually put a little bit of money into my savings account. So I think I'm pretty good with budgeting. So.
Well, do you do the need versus a want? I try to teach my children that all the time.
It doesn't always work out that great, but I like to look at it like I'd rather not have any problems later with like my credit being poor. So I like to obviously pay like all my bills first, and then if there's money left over, then yeah, I would love to spend it.
Well, like right now, Jackie's still living at home, which I think is the greatest advice you can give somebody, is to stay home as long as you possibly can to get that debt down, or to your point, get some savings, you know, like she's in that perfect prime, you know, they graduate college and then what happens? They start getting married and have all those extra expenses that we can't account for. Something that we didn't cover that I'd like to talk about is the consolidation of student loans. What's your recommendation? When I went to school a long time ago, you went and you consolidated your one big payment, and that's what I have now. But it was based on your income. So if as your income went up, also so did your payment.
Right, well, a couple of things that you can do in that respect. First, you know, if you're going to consolidate, only federal student loans can be consolidated through the government. So you may have loans that were not federal, they're not going to be eligible to be consolidated. But where it's possible, try and take your federal loans, go through, get those consolidated. That gives you one payment, and usually for a longer period of time. You can always later on prepay some of that loan off and pay it sooner, but it does give you a little bit of wiggle room to deal with your finances. Then look at your private loans also and see, you know, because usually you're going to pay a higher interest rate for those. Those are debts you may want to try and pay back a little bit faster. Take some of that extra money you get each month, put it toward that loan, pay that down sooner. But the idea, just try and simplify where possible.
So you're here representing Temple. What does Temple do? Does Temple do anything special? I believe that we should have all students go through a financial planning course in high school, and then again when they graduate college. That would be my dream. Just because he's like, oh, well, what do you say to that, David?
My dream would be that, you know, every student would come to Temple and already have some of that education coming out of junior high or high school. We know that's not happening today. So we're trying to offer more programs. We do it through freshman seminars, through other types of programs when students first come to campus. We have tools out there through our Money Matters website that will help students, and we keep trying to push out that information more and more. As far as doing something before graduation, I think that would be an ideal. Again, we have counselors that are available to see students one-on-one. A lot of what we do is electronic, web-based. It doesn't always make it easy because questions are going to come up. Again, if I'm talking to students, don't be afraid to come in and ask those questions, because you've got, you know, while you have that chance, take advantage of it. But even after you graduate, if questions come up or issues, we're still available through the Bursar's credit and collections area to work with alumni at that point, you know, and provide information that would help in terms of student loans and just in general debt.
You raised a great question, even alumni, and I think that I assume you would agree that there's a level of fear, and oh my God, or even a level of embarrassment. There's some people that graduate with no debt. They were lucky enough that their parents could, put them through their college. What would you say to the alumni maybe that is, totally overwhelmed in their debt? You're welcome to, they can come back to see you and somebody in your team as well.
I think they can come back, raise questions. There are programs that we're offering. April is Financial Literacy Month. There'll be a number of programs offered by the university for students and for alumni in specific areas. So there are always opportunities. And again, even in terms of seeking information, don't be afraid to ask. Talk, if you borrow money, if you've got questions, talk to your lenders, because they are there to really help. It's in nobody's best interest to have anybody being afraid to pay back debt or to become delinquent. But we know in today's world, things do happen. Take advantage of those resources.
Anything you wanted to ask that we didn't cover today? Did you want to ask, Jackie? Were your parents involved in the conversation with you while you were going through the educational?
Yeah, my mom, she actually helped me fill out a lot of my financial, my loan applications, but I didn't really understand them at the time. So I think
Why
that
do
if-
they make them so
yeah,
hard, David?
they are really
can we come out
challenging.
a way that they don't make them so complicated?
As soon as you say financial aid application, you know,
We all kind of glaze over.
everybody.
Well,
I glazed over when it was for my kids. It's a very complex process. There's no question about it.
well, thank you both. This has been great, very informative, and we'll do a whole nother show just on filling out the applications. Thank you very much. As much as we would rather avoid it, debt is part of modern life. Whether for our educations, our cars, our homes, debt definitely has a way of finding us. But that doesn't mean that we can allow our debts to define us or defeat us. We learned some ways today to face down our debts today, and hopefully giving you some new ideas to explore on your own. Just remember to use that hard-earned education to help you make the right choice. From the right perspective, bouncing back from debt can be one of the most rewarding experiences of your life. It shows you how far you've come and how much you've grown. And nothing beats the satisfaction of finally making that last payment. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you on the next Bouncing Back.